Struggling to stay up to date with social media? Do you want to get ahead online? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Public Sector Marketing Show, the podcast for public sector professionals who want to elevate their digital communications. Here's your host, Joanne Sweeney.
Hello and welcome to Season 6 and Episode 97 of the Public Sector Marketing Show. The World Economic Forum has published its Future of Jobs report. They say technology is driving the current transformation of the jobs market, especially the coming of age of generative AI. The disruption has been further eroded by economic crises, geopolitical instability, and growing environmental pressures. The report is based on a unique survey of the world's largest employers relating to job trends and their own forecasting from 2023 up to 2027. It brings together the perspectives of 803 companies collectively employing 11.3 million workers. So it is a substantial piece of research. This study gives us important insights into how we as marketers need to start thinking about the future of our work. So let's dive in. Okay, so let's get into some of the takeaways from the World Economic Forum report on the future of jobs. Economic health and geopolitical trends have created divergent outcomes for labour market globally in 2023. We're coming out of the post-pandemic age. The whole area of remote working has now become mainstream. We're living through the cost of living crisis and instability in Europe, in the US, and more broadly across the world is a feature of our everyday lives. And we're now seeing that affecting us. And I guess that is the impact of globalization and also the democratization of the internet. The largest job creation years are maybe past us because we're going to see a reduction in jobs. People are already losing their jobs in favor of technology. We're seeing big tech continue to hemorrhage jobs. They say they over-recruited during the pandemic. Now they don't need those hires. But there's been a new shift towards the end of 2023 and now in 2024, where big tech is leaning more into AI, and they're beginning to realize that they can shave a lot of their costs by replacing humans with bots. So technology adoption is going to remain a key driver of business and organizational transformation in the next 5 years, according to the report. It says over 85% of organizations surveyed identify increased adoption of new and frontier technologies and broadening digital access as the trends most likely to drive transformation in their organization. And this will be absolutely true for government and public sector. But a word of warning here, very often we see that your sector lags behind the trends in the private sector. But the pandemic has shown that you can innovate, you can be agile, and you can usurp what is the normal day-to-day business in an instant when faced with a major pandemic and a major global health crisis. So take those learnings and take that adaptability into 2024. Now, I'm not saying, let people off in favor of technology, but absolutely we can streamline what we're doing and move some of those more manual tasks over to technology and to allow us as human beings to lean into our emotional intelligence and our critical thinking. There's also a big emphasis on the application of environmental, social and governance, those ESG standards within these organizations that were surveyed. And that's going to have a significant impact on the future of jobs. So the next most impactful trends are what they call macroeconomic, the rising cost of living and the slow economic growth. Within technology adoption, big data, cloud computing, and AI feature highly on the likelihood of adoption. According to the survey, more than 75% of companies are looking to adopt these technologies in the next 5 years. The data also shows the impact of the digitalization of commerce and trade. We know more of us are now shopping online, even making huge purchases like cars and houses online. Digital platforms and apps are the technologies most likely to be adopted by the organizations surveyed, with 86% of companies expecting to incorporate them into their operations within the next 5 years. Large-scale job growth is expected in education, agriculture, digital commerce, and trade. And the fastest growing roles relative to their size today are going to be driven by technology, digitalization, and sustainability. So much of what we're talking about here in this report is, of course, applicable to government and public sector. But the question is, what is going to be the speed of your adoption and your transformation?
Public sector pros. Do you want to progress in your career? Are you going for promotion? Do you want to stay ahead of the digital media landscape? We can help you. View our training calendar at publicsectormarketingpros.com.
So given what we've learned about the Future of Jobs report from the World Economic Forum, I guess the question is, how should we as marketers rethink the future of work for us, especially in terms of career progression? And trust me, as somebody who owns a marketing agency consulting into government and public sector, I absolutely do have to think about the future of my work and the future of my business. And I guess what you could say that I do is I think about the future for you so that you don't have to right now. So I'm kind of making that transformation a little bit easier. But some thoughts to consider. I think that we all have to realize that technology is coming for our job. So let's embrace it. When we ignore change and when we work against it, it takes too much effort. It wastes time. Generative AI is mainstream. It's here to stay. The scalability of that technology is like nothing we've ever seen before. So the first thing is, let's embrace the technology. Marketers have to adapt to AI in particular, because much of what AI can do relates to all of what we do in our day job. So commit to increasing your knowledge and your aptitude this year of AI tools. Then I'd say just frame your mindset that technology and AI can take over those manual, laborious, repeatable, dare I say it, boring marketing tasks that we don't enjoy doing, or that we have a whole person doing for us. We can buy back time. And then that frees us up to engage in more critical thinking and more creative work, both which we love to do. And then finally, what I'd say is, well, you have to be that internal influencer. If you're not having these conversations already at meetings, or if there's no sort of horizon scanning in your corporate strategy or in your communication strategy, then maybe it's time to reopen those documents and to add them in and make amendments, because the pace of change is not going to slow, and you need to be making decisions for the future today. Russell Beck, thank you so much for joining me on the Public Sector Marketing Show.
Absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Joanne.
Well, first of all, introduce yourself and your work to our viewers and to our listeners.
Okay, so my name is Russell Beck. I'm currently the Director of Inspiration and co-owner of a company, Imagine, Think, Do. And we help leaders unlock the potential of themselves and of their people. And we do this through a variety of interventions, be that keynote talks, breakfast briefings, lunch and learns, interactive workshops, or delivering internationally accredited and certified leadership development programs. I'm the author of a book, The World of Work to 2030, a practical guide to future-proofing your business and your career. And that was launched 4 weeks ago.
Congratulations on the book. And I came across your work because you had extensive media interviews. You do work with Learning Waves, the SkillNet, and working with commercial radio in Ireland. And this whole episode is about the future of work. And we're very much all talking about AI and how AI is disrupting, it's displacing, it's stepping in to take over more menial and repetitive tasks. But talk to us about what your book looks at from now until 2030. What's the landscape and the horizon looking like?
Well, how long have we got? I wrote 70,000 words on it, so there we go. I guess the overarching, the most important thing about the book is the subtitle to an extent, a practical guide to future-proofing your business and your career. Because a lot of future gazing, crystal ball gazing, if you like, it can be interesting maybe intellectually, but so what? The big question is, how does that impact me? What can I do with all that information? So my purpose of the book was to do the heavy lifting for people. So I show what's going on in the world, how the world is changing, how things are happening. We know the pace of change is increasing, but we assume that the change we experience on a day-to-day basis is the same everywhere. It isn't. The world is changing. It's changing far faster than we realize. And it's changing in so many ways. So I did a section on that to immerse people in what's going on. But then I look at actually, so what? What does that mean? And I do that through 5 different lenses, if you like. The first I look at is how all that change will impact your business strategy. So how companies will alter, how the workforce they employ will alter, how they'll look for specialism, how companies will focus and become far more concentrated on knowing what they are and what they're not. They'll hunker down into areas of specialism. They'll become smaller. They will try and deal with the yin of flexibility and the yang of the office space, etc. So all of that was the first lens. The second lens was considering people, employees, and people strategy. Across the developed world, almost without exception, we are at full employment. All the data shows that is here to stay. We're at multi-decade lows of unemployment. By 2030, 1 in 10 jobs will remain permanently unfilled. So actually, how do you build a business where talent wants to come and wants to stay? Compensation is, of course, part of the problem, part of the solution, but humans crave more than a financial transaction. We want interaction. So what else can you do? The third lens was looking at future skills, and here AI, of course, comes in. But what are the skills of the future? What skills will business really crave and look for? And ultimately, they become more ephemeral and far less practical and definable. But if they are becoming more ephemeral, how do you hire them? Because it's hard enough to hire the more transactional roles of today. How do we hire critical problem solving for tomorrow? Fourth lens is sustainability, and here I looked at 2 aspects. The internal aspect of diversity, and by diversity I mean diversity of thought, diversity of experience, diversity of background, not the more classic tick box way that is tended to be used for diversity, because diversity of experience, cognitive diversity, is the crucible of innovation. And the external aspect I looked at of sustainability is climate and the climate change. And then finally, I looked at how, given all that business stuff and business side, how can we future-proof our career? How can we, you, Joanne, me, Russell, everyone individually listening to this session, how can you actually future-proof having a job that will pay a meaningful salary going forward?
Well, listen, you've really done the hard work, as you said, so we don't have to. And for those leaders listening to this podcast from government and public sector, often that sector of society can be accused of being late to any revolutionary party and any transformation party. And so this isn't just exclusively for companies or the corporate or business sector. Public sector, delivering public services in a world where we have growing populations and pressures on systems, they should be advancing plans to future-proof how they recruit, retain staff, and also how they lean into those transformative lenses that you talk about, right?
Absolutely. And actually, you raise a good point. when my book was published, have endorsements from lots of leaders across industry, across charities, across professional sectors, so on and so forth. But there's a principal of a university has endorsed it. The CEO in charge of a set of, I think from memory, it's 15 academies in the UK, so schools, has endorsed it and said, this is a must read for anyone in education. This is applicable to anyone who has an interest in understanding what is going on in the world, how the world is going to be changing, and how to prepare for it and make practical, tangible steps to improve and help themselves going forward. We're in a world where we are living far longer, which is a phenomenal thing. Every year since the mid-40s, early 50s, human life expectancy has increased by 5 months every single year. That is an unbelievable statistic. And not only are we living longer, but the quality of our life in that now longer period is far higher. But that means we can't afford to retire. And at the same time, artificial intelligence, as you rightly said at the very beginning, is threatening, destroying, challenging the very nature of jobs. And we see those two headlines going on all the time. It came out of Davos last month. It's in the front page of newspapers. We're living longer, pensions, you can't afford to retire, technology is destroying jobs. But no one is connecting the two. No one is connecting, going, well, what does that mean? How do I have a job that will last for another 20 years if technology is destroying it? That's what the book does.
And for those leaders who are reluctant to embrace this transformation and to educate and upskill themselves, like, what's your message to them? Because leaders are meant to lead and show us the way and take those initial steps so that we can follow behind.
Well, on a number of levels, and it depends how you scope this, I think if I spin that question slightly, and I said, how does people's strategy, we're at full employment across the developed world. It's a seller's market. Anyone with talent is in demand. Anyone with skill is in demand. Whatever skill or talent means to you, if they have a skill, if they have the right attitude, define as applicable, they're in demand. The opposite is therefore true. If you don't have a skill, if you don't have the right attitude, if you aren't keeping up to speed with things, then the opposite will be true and you won't be in demand. The future is increasingly for both business and individuals about not being average. Average is not enough. The interconnection of things, I can order something from halfway around the world and it'll be delivered by next Monday. I can order a service, COVID proved, services can be delivered 5 miles from the office, 500 miles from the office, or half the way around the world from the office. There is always someone in the world who'll be cheaper than you. So why should I hire you? That's the fundamental, the brutal reality, if you like. So you can run, but you can't hide, would be my message.
And you know what I think is interesting is that the book talks about the future of work and ensuring that we all have a place and remain relevant, but only up to 2030, and it doesn't seem that far away. You know what I mean? It almost feels like a bit of a contradiction.
And several people said, why did you pick 2030? You've spent a lot of time writing a book that's only got a shelf life of 3 or 4 years. Yeah. And actually that ties into the practicality I wanted, because if I'd have gone, the world of work to, 2035, 2040, that's Star Trek. I'm making it up that far into the future. I'm talking about living on Mars or something there, and that's not relevant. How does that help anyone? I really wanted this to be tangible and practical, and that may be to my disservice, if you like, in some way, but it's changing so quickly. I wrote this, so I started writing the book a year ago, and when I wrote the book, ChatGPT 3.5 had just come out, and from memory, 3.5 would pass the bar exam. the legal exam, but it would pass it in the bottom decile, the bottom 10% of students, people who took the exam. When ChatGPT 4 came out, that was, from memory, 9 months later, it also passed the bar exam, but in the top decile. So in 9 months, it has gone from the lowest to the top decile. That's why if you're really practically looking at what the future is or what to do, you can't look more than 4, 5 years, 6 years out, because how can anyone begin to think how that looks into 2035 or beyond? You've got to take steps now. You've got to respond, and you've got to respond based on what's going on. Otherwise, you'll struggle.
Are we going back to the office, or what's the prediction?
I think my personal view is that the statements by some very well-known leaders of get back in the office or pretend to work somewhere else are flawed. I think we're missing what the actual real problem, the real question is, what is the point of the office? And once you know what the point of the office is, design it appropriately in order to maximize what you have described you want from it. Mm-hmm. Now, most people answer the question glibly. Oh, it's for culture, it's for training, it's for development, it's for collaboration. Fine, but think that through. It's not meant to be a glib question. It's meant to be a hard question. What is the point of the office? And if the point of the office is for collaboration, why do you have desks lined up in rows, every row identical, every floor identical, which subliminally reinforces that you're all the same, there's no diversity, we're going to treat you all the same? Collaboration doesn't happen over a desk. It happens over a decent cup of coffee, and I emphasize decent, over a sofa, sitting down and relaxing. So know what it is, design it appropriately. There's been some fascinating research that's come out over the last couple of weeks. Professor Nick Bloom, Stanford University, who has analyzed what he calls RTO, return to office mandates of S&P companies in the last 3 years. The short version of his research is, if a company issues a return to office mandate, either short their stock or leave. It is an indication that that company is under short-term pressure, that they are struggling, and it's a response to those issues. Wow. He suggests that hedge funds are already using that as an indicator to short stock.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating, isn't it?
Significant. There was an article in the FT over the weekend, actually, just gone, that working from home, and not everyone can work from home, and this is the interesting thing, and I look at it in the book, broadly, if you bucket jobs into white collar, blue collar, a white collar can do certain jobs at home, and they are more productive doing them at home, and that people tend not to request such large pay rises because they are working from home. So it's a winner-winner for business. More productivity, less cost. What's not to like? Now, for blue collar, working from home is chaos. You can't actually do that and stock shelves or work in a warehouse or. What they look for and what they crave is predictability. So knowing which shifts they're going to be working week, 1 week, 2 week, 3 weeks out, so they can plan their lives. New York has a terminology for it. It's called clopenings. Yeah, things you learn when you research. So in New York, an employee can no longer be requested to do a closing and the following morning an opening, clopening. Because it's their quality of their lives. It's helping them live their lives and have good lives and decent lives and have some predictability to it. So they seek different things. But I guess the overarching question is, do you know what your workforce wants? Have you asked them? And if not, why not? Why are you judging what they may want? Nurses in the UK, the NHS surveyed them and they found that nurses prefer to work 4 12-hour shifts rather than 6 8-hour shifts, because it just made their lives easier to manage and operate and deal with things. Do you know what your people want? Have you actually asked them?
So looking ahead, though, over the next 5 years, and you'll probably do an updated version of this in about 3 or 4 years, with AI, sustainability, climate action, diversity of skills, niching in and becoming more specialist, how quickly are we going to respond? COVID showed us that we can respond quickly. This massive accelerant of technological revolution is coming at us as quick as the pandemic. Do you think we will respond as quickly and we understand the urgency as much?
No is the short answer. I think a number of the people listening to this, watching this, may have heard of Eisenhower's matrix. He had a classic, what is urgent is seldom important, and what is important is seldom urgent. And actually, we tend to, big things like this, we tend to, things that aren't critical, things that aren't causing us immediate pain, we tend to hide from, avoid, put it off, kick the can down the road. Climate could be exhibit A, pensions could be exhibit B, etc., etc., etc. So I suggest that probably, unfortunately, the answer is no. I think there are things you can do. I think if you are in any way in any business, and I mean business in the broadest organizational context, whether you're in education, government, industry, whatever it is, if you are in any way reliant on people to get stuff done, you are broadly facing an existential crisis. There are more jobs than people. That is not going to change anytime soon, if ever, because the ways to change that dynamic are either to have lots of children, but that takes 20 years to solve because they've got to get into education and come out the other side, or mass immigration, and that probably politically isn't going to happen either. There's no big untapped pool of labor just sitting out there waiting to be, oh, I didn't realize they were all there, kind of thing. So if you're reliant on people to get stuff done, this is existential. If you don't get it right, you will suffer the death of 1,000 resignations. So if you're going to do one thing, focus on people strategy, attraction, retention. Why do people want to, why should anyone work for you? Why should they pick you? What is your offer? What are you? What are you not? How do you, yes, pay, but there's always going to be someone who pays more. How do you develop people? How do you show them meaning in their work, that there's a point to actually doing everything you're asking them to do? How do you, what's your culture like? And actually, what are you truly in your culture? Most businesses try and be everything to everybody and end up being nothing to everyone, and so on. So focus on the people strategy side of things, because that will put you in probably the best stead going forward.
Wow, we are living in remarkable times. I mean, we're in election season all across the world, and in the UK and the US and hundreds of countries. And, often governments try and win elections based on jobs, will increase jobs, will keep people in jobs. But people have jobs, as you said, and this is the way it's going to be for the next 10 years. This is the first time maybe we're in this. Final question. I'm in marketing and communications. I mean, I can be displaced and replaced very easily with AI. But do we as leaders have a responsibility to understand and to practice and learn AI for our sector, to then introduce it so that we can, be those critical thinkers and, bring more value to the table rather than doing repetitive menial tasks?
And I think you've hit the nail on the head there. AI does destroy jobs, but it more typically in the white collar work that you and I do, what it more typically does is augment our jobs. It removes anything that is repeatable, definable, predictable, follows a linear, predictable process. A, B, C, D, E, repeat, repeat, repeat. AI will smash that out the park. What it won't do is the critical thinking. What it won't do is the so what, the visualization, the storytelling, the assimilating all this data and information on what's going on in the world and packaging it up into a nice 200-page book for someone to digest and have some practical advice. It doesn't do the thinking, or not yet. So you won't lose your job to AI. You'll lose your job to someone who knows how to use AI. Mm-hmm. So to someone who uses AI to do some of the heavy lifting, if you like, the boring parts of the job, freeing us up to do the more interesting thinking, visualization, storytelling parts of the job. That's the challenge. And we miss what AI does and what technology per se does. Technology removes your uniqueness. It dumbs a job down, if you like. It removes why you got the job in the first place, because it does that linear processing stuff. So if that's what your job was, if your job was bank teller in a bank going, would you like 10s or 20s in that? That job's gone. Your uniqueness has disappeared. So AI challenges what we are and what our value add is. And that's why don't be average. Be the best in Marcoms. Be the best in public sector Marcoms. Be the go-to person. Don't just be average. Be the best. And know what your value is.
Russell, this has been so fascinating. My mind's been blown quite a few times during this interview, and it's left me with, okay, I need to reevaluate my next 6 years, because I think we all have a responsibility to understand our own so what. Pinpoint as to where we can find you and find the book, because we all need a copy.
You're very kind. So you'll find me on LinkedIn, Russell Beck. You'll find me on our website, Imagine Think Do. It's currently going through a big overhaul, so forgive us for how it looks at the moment. But definitely Russell at imaginethinkdo.com, and you'll absolutely find me on LinkedIn. And I'm in Dublin rest of this week, back in May, but I'm all over. Give me a call.
Fantastic, Russell. Thanks a million, and hopefully we'll get to meet in person. I'll check your schedule, and hopefully I can be in Dublin when you're there too.
Look forward to it. Take care.
See ya. Bye-bye.
On the topic of the future of work and adapting your skills to the age of AI, then we can help you. We have 3 accredited programs: the Social Media Bootcamp, the Professional Diploma in Digital Communications, and the Professional Diploma in Social Media, all specifically designed and the content produced for government and public sector. So go ahead, have a look at those on our website, publicsectormarketingpros.com. You can also find out on the website how else you can work with Public Sector Marketing Institute. And finally, to wrap up this show, just a reminder that the 2nd edition of my book, Public Sector Marketing Pro, is available on Amazon. And if you prefer to listen, you can get the audiobook on Audible. As always, I really appreciate you tuning in, and I'll see you on the next episode.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share with a public sector pro you know. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. For more free resources, details of our upcoming training courses and consulting options, log on to publicsectormarketingpros.com.